Welcome to Grassroots Takeover, the weekly podcast bringing you the voices of people making everyday revolution. I'm Alison Playford.
And I'm Mark Weaver.
You can follow Grassroots Takeover on Facebook and Twitter. To find more episodes and become a supporter of the show, go to patreon.com/Grassroots Takeover.
On today's show, we look at and investigate the demonstration that happened outside Yarlswood Detention Centre just this past Saturday. Around 1,000 people came from all over the country, surrounded the place, went around the backside of it, where the detainees imprisoned inside can actually see outside. Messages of solidarity were sent from the crowd, phone calls were made, and we heard the voices of the detainees, and we'll be speaking to people from Movement for Justice about the demonstration. So welcome to the show. Thanks for listening. It's good to have everyone here. So yeah, you've heard we're going to talk about Yarlswood Detention Centre and the amazing demonstration on Saturday that was organised by Movement for Justice by any means necessary. You and I were there, weren't we?
Yeah.
About, 1,000 other people?
Yeah, a huge group of people. The largest demonstration at a UK detention centre to date, which really shows how this anti-detention movement is growing and really exploding in power at the moment. It's really, something very exciting that's happening.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just for people in London as well. I mean, it's a very diverse crowd that came out. I mean, there was queer groups, there was people of colour groups, there was anti-war groups, there was Palestinian support groups. There was all sorts of people, and they were from Glasgow, they were from Manchester, they were from Bristol. So it's how many?
8 coaches from London. There was
8 coaches.
A huge number.
Yeah, I mean, so it was a really kind of epically scaled thing, I think, and there was a real buzz in the air, wasn't there?
Right. Sisters Uncut, Black Dissidents, absolutely loads of groups.
Yeah, and it's a weird one because we've got 1,000 people in the sort of idyllic English countryside, and all you can see around you is kind of, fields.
Rolling hills and farmers' fields.
Yeah, it looks like a really old school kind of like, in the English country, nothing goes wrong here. All the problems of the world.
Hovis advert.
Yeah, exactly. Hovis advert. And then that's when you look to your left. And then when you look to your right, you've got security fencing, security cameras, barbed wire, and this huge, huge perimeter. And so the demonstration, one of the points of it was not just to protest and say we don't agree. It was to actually make direct contact to the detainees inside the detention centre. And for that, we had to walk. It's been a 15, 20-minute walk. Loads of people walked all the way around this perimeter fence in the middle of the countryside. It was a bit surreal at points where you're just kind of in the middle of a field with this huge sort of militarized-looking fence. And we got around to the back where the detainees could actually see out of their windows. It's the only spot where they could see out of their windows onto a kind of grassy verge, and that's where the whole demonstration happened, wasn't it?
Right, it's incredibly emotional as the demonstration came around a corner and began to take its position opposite the windows out of which the detainees, the people that are detained, could see us. Everybody inside, you could see them leaning out the window and jumping and waving and being super excited, and people in our group who had friends and relatives inside the detention centre were calling up and trying to place which flag hanging out of the window was belonging to their friend or relative, and it was incredibly, incredibly emotional.
Mm-hmm. They also had lots and lots of chanting, lots of really vibrant kind of music and stuff like that. And there was a gorgeous bit that kind of, this is the sort of thing that you only get on demos. So if you like the sound of this, you have to come on demos to experience this kind of thing. It was where a group of mostly young people kind of linked arms near the fence and during all the sort of, craziness when everyone was really excited. And they formed this line, and they had obviously prepared these kind of chain ladders with hooks on the end, and they actually hooked them over the top of this massively high fence. Spent ages sort of trying to get the ladders to be safe to climb up. Mm-hmm. And then once they did, 2 people climbed up and hung this enormous 10-foot banner or something. I don't know how big it was.
Bigger than that, much, about 20. It was huge,
yeah.
25 foot, and
it was raining as well. So, so this banner was kind of heavy from the rain and huge, and these kind of precarious people up on these chain ladders. And it must have been about 20 minutes or half an hour or something where everyone was kind of stood waiting for the banner to finally be straight. And
we were trying to work out how high the fence is. It looked about 8 meters, didn't it? With half of it sort of solid, and then the top half mesh or less solid than the bottom half.
Yeah.
But it's quite astounding to see people climbing the fences to a secure, to a detention centre in that way, and interfering with the fence in quite that way, and also, very little police presence. For what was visible, we saw very, very. I was actually shocked being used to demonstrating
about 5 coppers
in
I
London. Yeah, if you're used to demonstrating in London, it was shocking to see, in a good way. Like there was sort of all, a few cops. So there's quite a lot of police liaison officers, actually, those ones you see in blue that come up and pretend to be nice to you.
Yeah, they were really massive, though. Did you notice that? Like, normally, I don't know if you haven't experienced these, the coppers in the little light blue bibs that are always really chatty and friendly and up for talking, the ones who are, what they're about is just gathering intelligence on you.
Police liaison officers.
They say that they're about sort of keeping the peace and just communicating with demonstrators and stuff, but it's really just about spying on people and, seeing who's the organisers, what the plans are, just gathering intel, basically. But they're normally quite sort of normal-looking bobbies, but like the ones at Jarl's Wood, they were these huge hench people.
Hench guys, but remember, folks, just say no PLO. If they talk to you, you don't have to talk to them. Don't talk to them. So all of this stuff's going on. People are climbing the fence. Everyone's waving and going crazy, just really, really excited. All these 1,000 people are pouring in onto this grass verge next to the windows. And other wonderful things that happened was a lady who was sort of on the platform leading the demonstration, was a lady who at the previous demonstration, this was either the 3rd or the 4th Jarl's Wood demonstration, I'm not sure if there's been 3 or 4 before, this lady had been inside the detention centre at the previous demonstration and was now on the platform, on the phone, talking to people inside and, relaying their comments, and we could hear their comments on the loudspeaker.
Yeah, you can see a chunk of her speech on the video we put out the next day after the demo. It's called "Shut Down Jarl's Wood by Any Means Necessary." You can see her giving it a bit large on the microphone. Let's
link that video in the comments to this.
Yeah, so if you look beneath the YouTube, you can see the link to that. But going back to the police for a second, I mean, I sort of. It's interesting, because that group of people that size and, people banging their feet against the fence, people literally climbing up the fence at points. It's surprising in one, to look at it, that they had so little policing that they weren't less tense about it. But I suspect that Jarl's Wood and these detention centres that are housing almost exclusively people illegitimately who have come to settle in the UK and are following all of the processes that you should follow and are then just being detained without sort of charge or trial or access to rights. My suspicion is that they just don't want attention drawing to that fact while people are concerned about refugees and migrants, while there is an upsurge of interest, because it really kind of brings the lie to the UK's kind of so-called kind of compassionate view of this, that we're trying to just, settle people according to their own needs, who need it. Because the people who are trying to settle here are just being abducted and shoved in detention centres without any choice.
Right, and for those of us who have travelled to Calais or to Greece or, have taken part in the humanitarian aid efforts from England and other parts of Europe to migrants and refugees that are arriving on the shores of Europe, it's so important to know this aspect of it, to know that people that have arrived and they may have been in the country for many years can then be picked up and detained against their will. And we're going to listen to an interview in a moment, and we're going to hear what the conditions are like inside the detention centre, and it's a terrible thing, so if we care so much about the people as they're arriving, surely we also care about what happens to people when they come to our country. And that's why this movement is such an important movement, such an exciting movement that's growing so strongly and has had a huge victory. There was an element of the detention process called fast-track detention, which has just been defeated in the courts. Fast-track detention is a way of detaining people that's even more withholding of their rights than the usual way. So fast-track detention has just been defeated by the movement and is no longer legal. So the government's on the back foot. Movement for Justice by Any Means Necessary is growing, getting bigger, getting more and more dynamic, getting bigger and bigger protests. There really is some traction and movement happening in this area right now.
Okay, so now we're going to play a little interview we did with Movement for Justice, Joseph Mpanga and Anna Picchieri. We caught up with them and they're going to tell us about Movement for Justice and their experience of the struggle.
Hello, so we're here with Anna Picchieri and Joseph Mpanga, and they're both members of the Movement for Justice by Any Means Necessary, and also Joseph is a person who has been in detention for 3 months and 10 days up until relatively recently. Hi, Joseph and Anna.
Hi. Hello, hi.
Thanks for coming to talk to us today. First of all, we wanted to begin by speaking to Joseph about your experiences. So could you tell us a little bit about what's happened to you?
I was detained in May, and I was taken to a detention center in Gatwick, where I stayed for 3 weeks, and then I was moved to Hammansworth, where I stayed for the rest of the period. Of course, it came as a surprise. The officers told me that we are going to just ask you a few questions about your immigration status, and one question led to 10, and within a very short time, I was taken to a police station, and I was told that an immigration officer is going to come and pick me and take me to another place where I would be further interviewed. And that took almost the rest of the evening. I got to Gatwick Airport. I was detained at 2 in the afternoon, and I got to Gatwick Airport at 3 in the night. So all of that period was a period of waiting. I was put in a police cell for 2 hours, and then I was taken behind one of those vans that take people to detention. When I got to the first detention center, I was processed, which means everything of mine was taken away, and I was given a place to sleep. Where my first room had 3 people, and then I waited for the following day. Of course, no one came to speak to me until a week on. Of course, through that time, I was given food, I was given shelter, and someone every morning someone would say, someone will come and speak to you. So I had to just wait until someone came to speak to me.
And this was completely out of the blue. You'd committed no crime. You said to me earlier that you'd been in the UK a very long time. You weren't somebody that had just arrived. Not that it would be okay to, detain somebody with no explanation or charge, even if they had just arrived. But you'd been in the country for a very long time, and this had happened to you completely out of the blue.
Yes, it happened. Detention is such that they give you as minimum information as they can, and that heightens your insecurity, your fear, because you don't know what is going to happen. In the meanwhile, your neighbor, the person in the next room, or the person you've spoken to, tells you that they have been told that their ticket is tomorrow. Their ticket to go back to their country is tomorrow. And then you start getting scared of that process. Another person tells you, I'm going to court tomorrow. Everyone comes with a story. Everyone comes with a different situation, with a different answer to what is going on with them. There is no one specific course that all of us are going to go through A, B, C, and D. So every day becomes so long because you're waiting for something you don't know. You're waiting for something you can't appreciate, you cannot understand, but you have to wait. And that is why most people are finding it so hard, a system, so blunt to both the self and the mind. I have stories of people who have done harm to themselves because of waiting, because they don't understand why they are waiting. I've seen stories of people beating themselves up because they don't understand why they are there.
And I've been reading some reports from Yarlswood talking about people's mental health deteriorating, people's physical health deteriorating, there not being adequate medical care, this kind of thing. Is that in your experience as well?
In my experience, the medical situation is one of the worst in detention centers because we are seen as people who are healthy and well. But the system doesn't recognize that that situation of being locked up, of being restricted, is actually harming the mental aptitude of anyone. One, you're waiting for something you don't know, and you're waiting without any information. If you were waiting for something you don't know, but you are told that within 10 days, X is going to happen. So you know that, let me wait for the 10 days. But in this situation, neither is available. You don't know what you're waiting for, and you don't know for how long you're waiting for that, for what you don't know.
And it may be that people are then deported from the detention centre and they're arriving back in their country of origin, or what the government thinks is their country of origin, and they may be at very serious risk in that country. I guess that's potentially a very frightening outcome for people that are waiting, as you say.
Yeah, that is very true. The outcome, the fact that you are detained and then in some cases deported without actually resolving what you think is the issue of why you are in the UK becomes so bad, because I've heard stories of people who go and fight when they are being taken in the planes. They fight when they have arrived in their countries of origin, and all of this is showing that the system doesn't consider the elements of someone's status. We know stories of people who are deported, and if you had the elements of their case, you would actually notice that this person shouldn't be deported. For instance, people who have experienced torture, or in countries where there are laws that are against gay people or lesbians or bisexual people, or in countries where there is war. So if those facts have not been taken into consideration and this person is deported, they will keep fighting until they cannot fight anymore.
So, Anna, could you tell us a little bit about Movement for Justice and what Movement for Justice has been doing recently?
Basically, what Joseph is saying, like, he's speaking out, and he's speaking out as like someone that has been in detention, and once was out, he just joined Movement for Justice, as like most of our members are asylum seekers or people who got in the meantime a refugee status and are like fighting for everyone, to end detention and end the scapegoating of immigrants. So like we are like at a time where we heard really like a racist and full of hate like speech of Theresa May, and then like we have like on the other side like a big size, like a mass movement that is building like on victories like people who have been through the system, like ex-detainees, fighting for justice, fighting for the right to be free, because like we believe in this like a future of like where there is such a thing as like justice, human rights, and freedom for all.
So what we're talking about is all these tens of thousands of people who have done absolutely nothing wrong, being held for an indefinite amount of time, having not adequate information given to them. They're just waiting there, not knowing what in God's name is going to happen. They can be sent off. Who knows what's going to happen. Totally innocent people that have done nothing wrong. It's a shocking thing. Many people don't know, that this is happening, and it's a very shocking thing. But as you say, the government is on the back foot. Movement for Justice, by any means necessary, has won, along probably with wider parts of the movement as well, has won these victories. The fast-track detention has been pushed back. So the government is on the back foot, and it's something that can be won. Yeah. There's no reason for people to be in detention. They can be living out free in the community.
Yes. we do welcome that. You see, like the big march that happened like 1 month ago, like, you know, refugee welcome here. You can, you know, there are like more and more people taking a stand. So seeing like people who are like really fighting by any means necessary to get to a safer place, to have like a better like a future, to be happy. That's something very, very, very powerful.
And recently the demonstrations have been particularly at the Yarlswood Detention Centre, and they've been building in size. Is it the third one that is just happening?
Yeah, the third biggest one, where like women inside have been organizing for months, since they started wearing those like a t-shirt that they where they handwritten like we want freedom, we are not we are human beings, we are not animals. And especially women, you know, started to like speak out against those like abuse in detention, and started to organize. And they've been organizing like breaking down all the kind of like differences, like nationalities and like you know, religions and sexuality, just like together, like you know, fighting for freedom. That's like a defiance against, you know, like government policies that they want us to accept that there are like, you know, second-class citizen or human being, you know, that they can stay where they are, like in wars, or like, you know, living in poverty, or whatever is the reason, whatever is the oppression. No, they're marching. They're like, you know, pulling down the fences. So yeah, more and more fences are being put down. And
you said it's about the citizens joining with the non-citizens.
Oh,
and
yes.
You're talking about the I guess what we're describing as non-citizens in this case pulling down the fences. So I guess you're saying that the citizens need to join them in doing that, because many people in the UK have been taking aid to the camp at Calais, or have been making donations, but you're not necessarily talking about making aid and taking donations, are you? You're talking about doing political action. What do you think about that, political work as opposed to giving aid in this situation?
The issue of aid is an issue of the choice to go down the to give aid to someone is like telling them that just keep waiting there and something may happen. But a person who is forward looking cannot wait for aid, because aid doesn't end. If you're giving someone a shoe this time, the next day he will want food. The following day he will want something else. The following day he will want medication. And you won't be able to give this person the whole time. So the movement for justice is saying that just give these people freedom. Just give them a chance to aspire to something, to work, to do anything they can for themselves. Because the government is saying that in the name of its citizens, the other people, the non-citizens are lesser human beings. But we are all human beings. That is the bottom line. Whether you're a citizen in this country or not, you are first a human being. So the movement is recognizing those basic dignities, those basic rights. And we know that the arc of the universe will always bend towards justice. And giving someone help is a lot less than giving. We have our saying in my country that if you want someone if you want to feed someone, take them to the lake and teach them how to fish. Don't give them the fish, because they will come the following day to get the next fish. But if you take them to the lake and give them the rod, they will go by themselves and they will find a way. And as simple as that, that is what a person who is looking for a better life is asking for. We are not asking for government to give free tickets to people. We are asking that they recognize that the basic human rights and dignities are for everyone, and the citizens are not misrepresented by governments saying that they are being protected, because they are not. You cannot protect yourself from a fellow human being, because they are as human as you are.
Joseph and Anna. Really cool conversation. It was really nice to talk to them.
Yeah, and particularly the point that Joseph was making at the end, I found was such a lovely point about how we empower each other to find freedom, find our fish, as he was saying, our fish of freedom, instead of simply just giving goods.
Well, the thing was as well, like after we switched off the microphone, we were chatting, and he was kind of going over that point again, and he said something that really stuck with me, which is that he didn't say in the interview, which was about that whole metaphor about give a person a fish, or teach them to fish, and we have a certain idea of what that means in terms of charitable giving. But then he's turned around and said, no, the people in, say, Hungary who are bashing the borders down and defying the border regime and taking direct action, they're the ones teaching us how to fish.
Right, the people that are making the freedom marches are showing us. They're taking freedom, they're showing us how to take freedom, and that is what we're learning.
Yeah, so indeed, very much a reversal on the standard Western position. We're the ones learning, we're the ones listening, and it's people taking direct action and defying injustice that is the way forward.
Right, and Joseph also said another thing which was strangely evocative, I think, about the kind of banality of the process of detention, which when the initial person who he was being interviewed by was trying to make notes around the interview, they couldn't find a pen, so Joseph gave them a pen, and there's something heartbreaking in that.
It was like a Monty Python sketch or something. Joseph was laughing about it in a sort of, just sort of the insanity of it type way.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
The fact that these institutions and these massively powerful systems like the British state,
that can just wreck your life within a moment, within some kind of whim or administrative error.
But may ask you for a pen, because their pens run out, so you have to do it.
I'll just tick the box about destroying your life, or have you got a pen? And the other thing, which I found very sort of surprising, something I didn't know, I've got a British passport, I'm woefully ignorant to these things and privileged in such a way so as not to have experienced them firsthand. And Joseph was saying that he'd been in the UK for 12 years or 13 years,
long time. He just lives in the UK. That's where he lives. That's his home.
And at some point there was some issue around renewing, he was renewing his visa in his sort of every day-to-day paperwork, normal thing. He's been doing it for 12 years. There was some kind of administrative difference that this particular time, and bang, he's in jail. It's
And the people in Yarlswood, they were saying that on the phone. They were saying that, we've been renewing our papers, every month, on a monthly basis for years and years. We've established ourselves in, towns, in communities, in workplaces. And all of a sudden the government comes down and just says, no, sorry, there's been a glitch. We're not going to tell you what it is. We're not going to tell you how long it's going to sort out. And you're in a detention centre, and the conditions that we see in detention centres, thanks to the investigative journalism and stuff like that, says that these detention centres are places where people are abused and they get sick and they get mentally ill, and
they have no access to medication. It just Orwellian. It really is.
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's, people might assume that the detention centres, well, maybe the justification is that people are flooding into the country and, we just have to put them somewhere because we haven't got anywhere to put them, and so maybe the conditions are bad, but we're in a crisis or something like that. But this is actually an established part of the UK governmental economic system. People are in the country, they're citizens by anyone's definition, they're productive and so on, and then they're just being snatched and put in these detention centres. And when we ask ourselves, well, who benefits from such a crazy system? Like, how does anyone possibly benefit from that, from putting someone like Joseph or other people into these centres? And the only people who do benefit are Serco and G4S and the private security firms.
Yarlswood is owned by Serco, one of the scummy private security firms that's responsible for all sorts of other anti-humanitarian.
Oh, well, that's a whole show, what Serco and G4S are responsible for. But yeah, it's on their profit sheet that the benefits of this are going. And the contracts that they're getting are government contracts. So guess who's paying for that ultimately? It's the UK taxpayer. It's UK taxes going to the government and then going from the government to Serco and G4S to abduct and incarcerate people of colour from Africa and from Asia and from South America and keep them there indefinitely.
Do we want to pay for this with our taxes? That's the question. Do we want to pay for this kind of thing to be happening?
We'll leave that question hanging in your mind for a moment or two. So, yeah, the message of this show is we love Movement for Justice. We support every effort to close the detention centres. We want to see all of you out there with us on the street.
Yeah, out there, there'll be more yards with demonstrations. Everybody's going to come. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. This really is one to watch. You'll regret it if you miss it. So you can find out about how to get involved on Twitter at @followmfj. That's Movement for Justice on Twitter. At @followmfj. Find them on Facebook, Movement for Justice by any means necessary, or movementforjustice.org is the website.
Yeah, movementforjustice.org. Come to their next action. They will teach you how to fish.
Oh, and special thanks to Anna Picheri and Joseph Mpanga.
Bye for now.